on, Joe?
No, it's Monday, and I'm always excited about Mondays.
Yep, 2 weeks in a row where we're back on filming our podcast, which I'm pretty sure our listeners will be happy about.
Yeah, no, we are back into, we are in the middle of June. Today is actually June 12th, but for today's episode, as you guys can see, we are doing News Roundup, talking about some of the biggest news that came out for the month of May. What are we going to talk about? Just a little foreshadowing. We are going to talk about rates. We're going to talk about what Americans think about our speculation and vacancy tax, especially for the ones that has homes here. We're going to talk about a new condo development stalled or canceled because of rising interest rates. We're going to talk a little bit about natural gas. That's always been kind of on some people's conversation for the last couple of years. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about AI.
Your favorite topic.
I love them AIs and how we think it's going to impact our market here. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how BC, their investor/homeowner ratio. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to end our podcast here this month with talking a little bit about housing starts.
Perfect.
A lot of things kind of intertwine, kind of connects together, so we might jump a little bit back and forth. But with that being said, Jeff, why don't you take it away with the biggest news that came out in the last month?
Yeah, this one was quite a shocker, I think. When I woke up, the first thing I did was text you and say, hey, Joe, did you see this? And you're like, yep. Was up at 5 a.m., saw this already. So as you can see here, Bank of Canada ended their pause on the rate hikes and increased their overnight rate to 4.75%, which is the biggest piece of news last month. Now, with our inflation increasing year to year in April back to 4.4%, which is the first increase in 10 months, and food and real estate being the stickier items, the Bank of Canada has decided to increase the overnight rates by 0.25% and continue its quantitative tightening. Now, should this momentum in terms of economic growth and inflation continue, the Bank of Canada is considering one more raise for overnight rate to 5%. An overnight rate of 5% would be commercial rates. The commercial rates would be going to around 5.5% to 5.8, 5.9 to the higher 5 range. Now, put that 0.25% increase into perspective. On a 100K mortgage, that would be about $15 per 100K.
That's right.
Not something that we may notice will break our bank. $15 right now is literally a junior chicken meal at McDonald's.
Right.
Don't ask me how I know. Is that a big difference? Most people wouldn't really notice that.
Yeah.
And the most people who are concerned about the interest rate increases, they've already been treading water for the past 10 months.
They would have stepped out of the market maybe like August of last year.
Yeah. So to me, this may affect people in the future, but most people who are already pre-approved, they're not really worried about that.
Right. Just to kind of add on to what you have said, Jeff, I feel like with this 0.25, it's more of I feel like it has more of a psychological effect more than actually. No, don't get me wrong. It damaged people's pocket, but it's not damaging enough for them to change their lifestyle or change whatever plan that they already have.
No, but if it actually does go to 5%, you and I were just talking about it before. It's like that 1.99 or 99-cent mentality. Yeah. Oh, what 99 cents? 4.99 isn't so bad. But as soon as you go to 5.25, you're like, whoa! I have to reevaluate whether I'm going to buy this item or not.
Exactly, and that's the psychological part of it. Is this going to be all of a sudden people just go, yeah, no, forget it. I don't want to buy a home anymore and I'm just going to go back to renting? I highly doubt it. Just don't forget about the elevated rent prices that's out there as well.
I think what it's more going to affect is the long-term game in terms of inventory. We always talk about these developers that have to pay higher than residential interest rates. They might not be building anymore, and we hear about projects being canceled here and there and developers like backing out of the game, and we are going to touch a little bit more about that later on in this episode, but I think it has a serious or could potentially impact our inventory for the long term.
Just to add on to that, you're absolutely right. In the short term, we're probably like, nah, life goes on, right? And I just want to add on to what you said is, you're right. First of all, construction mortgages is higher than our regular mortgages. Second of all, the construction mortgage amount is ridiculously higher than what a mortgage that we would get.
You're talking about tens of millions to hundreds of millions.
Exactly. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions dollars at 8%. What? You know what I mean? That little tick of every 25 basis points or 50 basis points means a lot to them. And this last point, this 0.25, I can project that it is going to topple some developers over, and they just go, like the math doesn't make any sense anymore, right? And because of this, there is another article. We're not going to talk about it. Maybe I'll just link it right here, right now. It's just that they're already projecting that 2023 and 2024, we are going to have less housing starts.
Oh, great. So another below 10-year average statistic that we'll be looking at next year.
Right. So to quickly summarize, I feel like this just might pour some cold water over our market right now for the short term. For the long term, I feel like this elevated interest rate will impact our overall inventory like 5-6 years down the road. Nobody ever talks about it because it's not today's problem. That's like Joe and Jeff 5 years away problem.
Yeah.
Who cares about that, right? But what I am going to get people to think about is, what do you think people would rather do? Would they buy and pay an elevated price point, knowing the fact that 5-6 years later there's an inventory problem, so the prices most likely will go up, or they'll just pay their elevated rent right now?
I think it really depends on the people's individual financial situation. For me, if we were in a position to buy now and just suck up that high interest rate, of course it would be a better investment, because you'll get to appreciate the elevation 5 years down the road.
That's right.
But does the human mind work like that? No. It's like that analogy about, would you rather take a penny right now where it doubles every day for 30 days for like the next 25 years, or would you rather take $1 million now?
Yeah.
And most people are going to take $1 million now.
Right.
But I think the statistic was like, after you do the math, you actually get like 1.2 million if you took the penny or something like that.
Right. My understanding is there's a scratch ticket that we have here. It's called Set for Life.
Oh, yeah.
$1,000 for 25 years.
Or $625,000 right now.
Which one would you take?
Obviously the money right now. Because I could throw it in real estate and then just enjoy the appreciation in the future.
Guys, listen to what this guy just said.
Moving on.
So we actually quickly touch base about this particular story in the first article that we talked about. So it's a great continuation. Richmond condo development stalls due to rising interest rates. Thin Properties has halted its Mineral Square project that was located right on Mineral and Lansdowne, and is returning all 20% deposits for homeowners. If you don't know about the project, Mineral Square is 400 units over 11 floors that was set to complete in 2025. If you recently drove by, nothing has happened. The presentation center is still sitting there. They did interview an agent who had multiple clients that bought in there. In the interview, that stated that there is an unequal relationship where buyers cannot walk away from the contract, but the developer can just end it without any solid reason.
I mean, that's the danger of, or potential risk of, buying into a pre-sale.
Exactly. And what we always say about developers, they're not here to do charity work.
No, if it don't make dollars, then it don't make sense. They're in business to make money first. And if they get to help people, then okay.
Great, right? So with the interest rate increasing rates, the cost of developments getting higher and higher, combine that with a higher cost of labor, any little things could, once again, this is the second time I'm sitting in this podcast, could topple a particular project over, right? Now, of course, there are some speculations out there saying that, hey, this project just didn't sell very well because, the developers passed, what have you, and they're using this as an excuse to kind of, reset their disclosure statement. You know how I always tell you a developer needs to sell up to 65% or 70% within the first 12 months, or else they're not going to get a building permit and they're not going to get the financing. Maybe the developer saw that coming. I don't know. I didn't ask any people from Rennie. Rennie's associates was doing this particular project. I didn't ask, but this could also be a potential reason why. Or it could be a combination of all of this, right? In the article, Thomas Davidoff, real estate professor in UBC, states that pre-sale is extra risky now that interest rate is so high and construction cost is still remaining to be very, very high as well. Right? Now, a lot of people don't understand why that this would impact, but just think about it this way. Most developers get a loan for developments. Very rarely do developers go, hey, I have $100 million sitting in my bank. Let's do one project that is completely finance free.
Impossible.
Exactly.
I mean, there might be a couple of players that have the luxury of being able to do that, but why would they?
That's the thing, right? So obviously then they will definitely get a loan, and you get a huge loan with a higher interest rate and you combine that with the long turnover and ever-changing cost of raw materials and labors and what have you, the developers performa gets outdated very, very, very quickly, very fast. And this is the reason why during COVID, I mean, aside from obviously COVID, but during that period, we saw very, very little housing starts. It's just because a developer doesn't even know how to price their homes because they don't know what the cost of their home is. So, and they don't even know what kind of profit margin they're going to be able to absorb. So how can they actually do a proper performance?
So it sounds like it's a kind of repeat of one topic that we talk about a lot, uncertainty. Nobody likes that.
Nobody likes that, right? So I don't know, what are your thoughts? I didn't even ask, I just start blabbing on about this whole thing. What are your thoughts about pre-sale, this particular projects with the rising interest rate overall?
I think by the time we film a news update or a news roundup in December, we probably will revisit this topic at least 3 or 4 more times with different projects throughout the city.
So you're saying that this isn't going to be the first?
This is not the first, it's not the last, it's going to be a trend for a little bit. And you know what? You taught me this yourself. You know, pre-sale, when you're buying a pre-sale, you're buying variance. So pre-sales to me are only for 2 people. Either you don't have enough money to save for a down payment right now, or you have the luxury of absorbing that risk and you're not really too fixed about dates, interest rates, or things like that. So you're an investor who's got deep pockets and you're like, oh, I actually really do believe in this project. That's why I want to buy into it.
But with the ever-changing interest rate, I would add on to what you say. Everything you say, I agree, but I would just add on and say the first group doesn't really apply anymore. You remember that story I always tell you about Atmosphere?
No.
Right? How they bought it for the end use, and you know, and then
what they thought was taking the next big step in their relationship and life. Ended up being the last step that they took together.
Yeah, basically. And now, I guess what the article is saying is that now with all of these things happening, if you are buying this to live, I really hope, I guess the article is trying to say is that they really hope you have a plan B, plan C. Not saying that pre-sales is not good, but all I'm saying is that putting all your eggs in one basket that is called the pre-sale development is now getting extremely risky if you don't have other backup plans, especially in regards to your own personal accommodation.
So what would you say to someone who's a first-time home buyer right now who's exploring a pre-sale?
I'm sorry, man. Like, if you want
your shit out of luck?
Well, not that. Like, we talked about it's about a year ago about the things that you need to consider in pre-sale is that you definitely need to do a due diligence. And you definitely need to kind of try to research a little bit about the developer's background and honestly like the current economic, standings and where we are right now. For example, like if I were to buy from Polygon, I think as a first-time home buyer, I will be a lot more relaxed because they're the biggest developer. They have 30, 40 years of reputation that they need to withhold. So even if this one is not going to make them as much money, they're probably just going to be like, screw it, let's just go ahead with it. Let's just move on to the next one. However, on the flip side, if I'm trying to buy from a developer that I never heard the name before or at any point had a really continuously long bad reputation about finishing up the projects, the qualities and stuff like that. And this is a time where I will probably be like, whoa, okay, if those are the developer projects that you want to buy, I would highly recommend that you reconsider or go buy something that's already there. Right?
No, I agree. And I think one more layer of that would be this might be obvious, live beneath your means until you can save enough for a down payment and just buy a resale.
But Jeff, I want my bathroom to be full of marble.
Okay. Well, then you got to pay for it.
You got to pay for it, right? So that is what I would say about this. Hopefully, as a listener, you are not the kind of the person that bought into Minru Square. But if you are, I think Minru Square is at a better situation than Atmosphere. At least the developers, they're actively saying,
well, you're going to get your refund.
Yeah, like have your 20% back. They haven't started digging, so they already spent some money, but they haven't spent so much money that they already lost all your money already.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Moving along.
You want to move on? Okay, let's move on.
Let's look at this. Vancouver looks to reduce natural gas for stoves, fireplaces for new builds. So, the City of Vancouver passed an amended motion to reduce the use of natural gas.
Yeah.
The original motion was to outright ban natural gas.
Yeah.
But cultural bodies spoke, and now they're changing to see how they can find a happy medium.
Yeah.
Comment from Ken Sim.
Our Vancouver mayor.
Yep. Oh, I mean,
I always say lawyer for some reason.
I hope everyone knows that Ken Sim is the Vancouver mayor now.
Yeah.
With half the city being South Asian or Asian descent, it doesn't sit well with him if we just take the ability out of individuals in certain groups to be unable to perform the most basic functions, making their own food. I mean, as soon as you say natural gas, I just think about that sound that the wok and the metal flipper makes, like, it's like an identity.
It is.
You know, to be able to cook with natural gas. So now instead of the ban, the city will provide more of an option for developers for new builds using these terms: prescriptive and performance.
Yeah.
So performance being using natural gas.
Yeah.
And prescriptive using electricity.
That's right. Yeah. Now, they didn't talk too much about how do you get into the performance sector, how do you get to the prescriptive one, but I guess I would just assume that if you want to use natural gas, you're going down the performance one, that'll probably cost you more as a developer in regards to your CAC fees or whatever other fees that you need to pay.
Now, do you feel like this natural gas initiative is to reduce our carbon footprint? Why do you think this councillor spoke about that?
I think that is the initial intent. Maybe there's also some safety concerns, which that's a stretch for me, because when was the last time you heard natural gas exploding? And a building exploded because of it.
I mean, we've been hearing this catchphrase, smell gas, run fast, since we were kids in school, but when's the last time I heard an explosion or anything like that? I don't think ever.
Or in Taiwan, this happens a little bit more from my mother country, but in Canada, when was the last time you heard someone die out of a carbon monoxide poisoning?
I don't think it's made news for
a long time, right? So I don't think this is really considering about safety. So this makes me think that maybe there's another layer of this that we're just really not thinking about, or is it truly that they just want to go green? But we talked about this before the podcast started, just changing this, how much carbon footprint are we actually saving? Isn't there other ways for us to maybe change the building code? We were just talking about passive housing just before the whole thing started. That maybe would become a little bit more effective, yet also not changing how certain ethnic groups, how they can cook and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
Because I think once you get into that, it's become such a sticky subject that you're just going to get a lot of resistance and like pushback on it.
Oh, for sure. Like, by the way, like this was in a conversation before I even became a everyday realtor, when I was already working with pre-sales still. And a lot of people think that this is, if they were pushing this outright ban, this was going to be detrimental for a lot of businesses. I think about all these Asian restaurants, they're not running anymore. I always like to watch on YouTube, like Uncle Rogers, right? The wok hei. That's a serious thing.
That's a serious thing.
Yeah, that. It's not just joking. Like
Breath of the Dragon.
There we go.
What they call it. Yeah.
So if you literally take that away from people that is so accustomed, they've been cooking like this for 40 years, they actually don't know how to cook. And as a reminder, there's a reason why most developers that's still building right now, if they can go gas, they go gas. Because they know that general public still likes gas.
I mean, every single time I walk into an open house, you're like, oh, look, this is a gas stove, makes for a better product. Like, you're basically going to eliminate like all commercial spaces with like those urban mixed-use buildings.
Exactly, right? So those are just my thoughts on this. Did you have any thoughts about, you used to be in the restaurant business, man. You got to have a little bit more comment about natural gas.
I think it'd be outright foolish for them to put a ban on it. So I'm glad they're having a conversation to let developers choose. But if they're going to start forcing developers to pay some type of fee in order to put natural gas in their buildings, I think it's BS. You're pushing like developers further and further away from wanting to build in the city if you're doing stuff like that. And
here's the thing: is like, I don't want to get canceled for saying this, but like, I feel like with this, just it's a lot of people not really listening to what the end consumer really wants. They just want to throw out their ideologies out there
for votes.
But then, and this is what I always say, this is what I learned recently, is capitalism will work its own way out. Because if there is a choice between gas or induction, and some developers are doing induction, some people are doing gas, I bet you anything the gas one as a project will probably sell a lot faster.
Yep.
Right?
I think so.
And that's capitalism as work, right? Because that's just what everyday consumer wants.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that we should lean towards what majority of the consumer wants.
Well, yeah, but if I came to you and I said, hey, you have a project here that you can get natural gas, you're paying $100 per square foot more, or you get one for electric and you're paying $100 less, what are you going to go for? No matter how much you love natural gas, is that worth an extra?
Well, that's going to be depending on how the project is going to sell.
Yeah.
If as a developer, then I need to sit down and really have that analysis. Like, look, if we go induction only, how much business are we actually going to lose?
As a consumer, I'm not going to pay $50K more for natural gas.
You're not?
No.
Really?
No. Would you?
$50K?
Yeah. That's how you know Joe's Mr. Moneybags, because he's actually seriously.
No, it's because I actually cook, okay?
Hey, what's that stove over there? Oh, yeah, it's natural gas.
It's natural gas, right?
Makes sense.
I would. I don't know. I'm pretty
Okay,
torn.
I'm really curious about this from listeners. Like, natural gas, would you pay more for it if there was an option, or would you be happy going induction?
Let us know. Let us know. Let's move on. Let's talk about this. Actually, I wanted to have this conversation with you for a really long time, because you know that I have shifted a lot of my business with this, right? All right, let's get to it. AI could bring buyers closer to the process of finding a home. Just ignore the title. This is really just talking about how AI is impacting the real estate industry, just like how AI is impacting every other industry, right? So in here, it says that with the introduction of AI, it's almost kind of the same as the introduction of internet back in the days. A lot of realtors firmly believe that it will change how the industry work, just like how internet changed how the industry worked. But they're saying that they don't feel like it's going to kill the industry. Like, realtors are not going to be an obsolete career just because AI has decided to pop onto the scene. They're saying that right now AI has been used for virtual staging. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. To AI viewing. I think that's kind of like, your goggle and then use, the whole thing to do analysis on real estate contracts and MLS data. And then I think I think that's what the article says, that what AI is getting used now. The biggest thing really right now, I guess what I'm gonna focus on is the use of AI for virtual staging. Now, I personally have been using virtual staging the moment I became a resale realtor, and that was about 4 years ago. I did it for this 2-bedroom condo in Port Coquitlam, and I did it for a 1-bedroom in Concord Garden in Richmond. And back 4 years ago, the technology, I was already kind of like, whoa, like this is nice. Right?
You're basically playing Sims with real estate.
Yes. However, people can still tell, like, oh, that's virtual staged. This is actual staging. But recently, I've been seeing some, like, Paragon MLS listings. I'm starting to see that some virtual staging looks so real that I can't really tell anymore. Now, at this point right now, I would like to say that I still prefer real staging, because virtual staging, you get people through the door. And then when people come, they see no furnitures, they still can't project, like, their spaces and stuff like that. I don't think then it's good. I still prefer the actual staging. Right? Now, however, right here, maybe the new Apple Vision Pro, Vision Pro would help with all of that. Have you seen the new Vision Pro thing?
All I saw was the $3,400 price tag,
and then you went.
Stop watching.
Okay. I'm not gonna assume our listeners also doesn't know. It's a augmented reality.
I'll say this again, Joe, Mr. Moneybags.
No, what are you talking about?
$3,500 goggles, no problem.
Anyways, I'm not gonna continue. It's a goggle that you can see through it, but not only are you seeing the real stuff, but then you're also seeing the AI stuff in front of it. So I'm thinking that maybe in the future, if this technology matures, then people can actually have that Vision Pro goggle. They can look at the actual home, they can be in your open house, but then with that goggle on, they can actually see all the furnitures. Without the goggles, they can't see the furnitures. That's what I'm trying to say, that this whole Vision Pro AI thing would really help in regards to that. Then as a realtor, coming back to this whole article, we're still not losing our business. in fact, that probably just means that I just have to buy this Apple Vision Pro once, then I never have to do real staging ever again.
Maybe. I think the AI and virtual staging, it definitely simplifies and enhances the experience. Like obviously it makes it easier for people who are halfway across the world to envision themselves living in there, but I also think that it depends on what people are buying. If I'm buying a home, I still want to be able to see, touch, and feel everything, because if I come into your open house and there's no real staging done, it's all virtual, it's still a little bit hard for me to envision like living there. It's just an empty space. It's just like a dead space to me. I would still want to be able to see a couch there and touch it.
You say you feel like the touching is important for you.
I think the touching is very important.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, because in open houses, I don't sit on couches, I don't touch people's items, I don't touch the stuff. That's why I was thinking that, well, if I don't really touch any of this stuff, then Apple Vision Pro will be more than enough.
Maybe I just haven't had enough exposure to that type of like augmented reality. Like I don't even have Pokemon Go like when it came out. Okay. So for people who are maybe very in tune to it and used to it, it may be a little bit easier. It's just like, we compare AI to the internet. When the internet first came out, there's still people who are maybe, what's before baby boomers, even older than that, like grandparents' generation.
I the earliest I know is literally the boomers. That's already the boomers, right? I'm pretty sure anyone before.
Some of them, it's like the internet's also already like a whoa, And I think with the augmented reality, until like more and more people become immersed into it, I still would prefer real staging. I agree with you. The virtual staging will get people through the door, but I think the rest of it will be a home run.
Okay,
and like the agent is actually the tool that you need in order to sell the home. Just seeing a picture, it's not going to sell itself. Unless you're an investor, you're looking in, all you care about is the numbers and the data.
Yeah. So you're still feeling like, because real estate is such a high ticket item, you need to be able to use all your senses, and you need to be able to talk to a live human being who understands.
If I was purchasing a home to live in, yes. But if I was buying a home just as an investor, then no, I wouldn't give a shit. Because I'm not the one living in it. Okay. If I'm the one living in it, then I would actually care to see the staging inside the unit.
So by your extension, then, may I say that you feel like residential real estate will be okay, because people need to feel and touch and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But any other real estate that does not require feel, touch, sitting on neighborhood analysis, you feel like AI is able to replace that portion of.
Maybe not fully, but definitely more than residential. Because when you look at a commercial space, when you do initial renderings, they're all virtual already of how you build out a restaurant, let's say, for example, right? Yeah. Before you actually have it, you're having an architect design everything. Mm-hmm. With residential, I think there's a lot more flexibility, because what you want in a house and what I want in a home is like completely different.
Right. Whereas office space is just like, what's my view and how many tables can I fit in?
It's about how
there?
many desks can I get here, how many cubicles, or in a restaurant, how many seats and how many tables can I get in?
Yeah. Okay. So based on what you think is, the AI would cause more of a threat to commercial real estate agents than it is to residential real estate agents.
I think so, yes.
Okay, because I agree with you. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of where I'm going with this, and I'm surprised that we're thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm thinking is houses, yes, for sure. Houses, you need to go in, you need to take a look at it. Do you think like a one-bedroom condo the whole process could just be utilized through AI? Because a one-bedroom condo is a one-bedroom condo.
Come on, when you go into Vancouver House and you see those like 300, 400 square foot units, do I need virtual staging in there? No. Like, do I need real staging? No, it's just a small box. What am I gonna do in there? I'm gonna put a Murphy bed in there, and then that's it.
Yeah, and another thing I'm gonna add on to what you said, I agree with you, just because right now, like this weekend, I was doing 4 buyer tours, and 2 out of the 4, I was literally just doing this to the whole unit. So I was literally selling by shooting a video, and people are so accustomed to that already. Mm-hmm. And however, that's for a condo. They already seen the floor plan, they just need to see the finishing and what the condition is inside and stuff like that. So yeah, that portion I do agree, but ultimately, once again, to stay on our focus, I feel like the whole AI will help our business. It's not going to take over our business. Whereas some other industries, I do fear for them that their whole industry might be taken over.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk food and beverage, because as you know, that's my previous history. I think already a lot of that can be done. If you go into like an Ichiran, you don't even need like someone to serve you. You're already sitting in a cubicle, your window opens, the food's in front of you. What's stopping a robot from doing that?
True.
There's no human-to-human interaction. If you're going to a different type of restaurant, let's say you're going to a Blue Water or like a Joe Forte's where it's like an experience kind of thing, then yes, you still need that server to provide that experience for you. But if you're just going in like any fast food, I don't give a shit who's serving me my junior chicken and my Big Mac.
True. I mean, I talked to this with Rita all the time in regards to her industry, accounting.
Yeah.
Come on, if AI gets to a level that can make it error-free and be able to turn over in like, I don't know, let's say 30 minutes instead of a month,
yeah,
I can foresee how the accounting industry could be severely impacted. That's why I've been recently telling Rita is like, with accounting, I'm not sure if you know too much about accounting, but accounting, one of the major things is you could do bookkeeping or you could do budgets. Like you're budgeting for next year. And I've been telling her that you really need to start honing in onto how to deal with budgets. Yeah. Because that's where your value is at. I don't think an AI at this point right now will be able to properly run a budget that is tighter than a human. I don't think so. Hey, if I'm wrong, please, accounting guys, please out there, please let me know, right? But I want to come back to a fact about commercial and residential. Generally, I would say the other reason why you want to definitely hire a commercial realtor is because in commercial real estate, the contracts are not templated. So all variants, there's a lot of different wordings. There's the offer to lease. I don't know if you've seen offer to lease. The thing looks crazy to me sometimes, right? And that's where a lot of the value of commercial real estate agents are coming from, aside from lead sources and home source, commercial sources, because a lot of those are now public. This is the second part. So if AI can just completely replace that contract writing portion, because AI should be able to, you just tell them the conditions that you want in there. Plus, there is a way that AI can do proper analysis on rent per square footage or whatever in a microeconomic scale. And on top of that, if real estate agents are no longer able to keep pocket listings, I have a feeling that commercial real estate agents is going to get replaced sooner than residential real estate agents.
I agree.
You agree, right?
I agree as well. For now, it's just a supplementary tool. Yeah. But that tool, if used properly and if over time as it evolves, like I do see a bigger threat to commercial.
Now, I want to add on to this just because I wanted to talk about this in front of a podcast with you for a long time. What do you think would take for AI to completely replace realtors?
Once it can practice empathy to the same level as a human being.
Do you think that's possible? Not now, but
I'm not saying impossible, because I think anything is possible. Maybe not in our lifetime, maybe in our lifetime, but I think one day it can.
Okay, I agree. I mean, isn't Elon Musk already wanted to put ChatGPTs in everybody's brain?
Then you have China with microchips in your hand where you can just use it as a processing payments.
What was that thing? The beep thing, right?
Yeah, it was at like 7-Eleven or something like that.
Jeez, that's so crazy, man. Anything you want to talk about AI before we move on?
No, I think we'll put it on a pin on that for now. I think it's a topic that will reoccur through over time, and it's very interesting to see how it's meant to improve life in every industry and not just real estate. But I think for now we're okay. Yeah,
like for example, the latest listing that we did, the one on River Drive in Richmond. That whole video, the script, was purely ChatGPT. And you know what the funny thing is? My client was like, "Hey, your English got better."
Nope, you just got more resourceful.
Exactly. But yeah, that's pretty much it on AI stuff. Anything else that you want to quickly add for AI?
No, but I do want to hear about how AI has changed your guys' industry and your line of work. And if there's anything that you want to share with us, please drop in the comments later.
And if you're using ChatGPT or AI differently in real estate, please, I would love to know how you're using it to benefit your business.
Yes.
Right. Okay, well, back to a more serious note, Jeff.
Let's change gears. Next article here, Americans should be exempt from Canada's foreign housing tax, members of Congress says. It's here, it's finally here. We've always been curious on how Canada could pass all these laws when we have all these free trade agreements with our biggest trading partner to the south.
Exactly.
So, to summarize this article, 11 members of Congress from both the Democrats and the Republicans side said it's unjust to require U.S. owners to pay a 1% levy for speculation and vacancy tax.
I quote,
Putting our strong bond between our countries in jeopardy.
thoughts? I mean, assuming that they're talking about speculation and vacancy tax, they're not even talking about the 2-year ban.
Yeah, I wonder if those Congress people, like, maybe they just don't know, because if I was an American citizen, I would be more of an uproar about not being able to buy, especially when our dollar is so strong compared to the Canadian dollar.
Yeah.
But it's always been a little puzzling for me how it works. I mean, it's a surprise that they have to pay these extra taxes on their vacation homes, because we're obviously not talking about investment properties. We're talking about people who are just have so much money that they're buying a vacation home in Kelowna or what have you, somewhere in the Osoyoos, and then they have to be hit with these fees.
I always say, like, imagine how Canadians would feel all of a sudden their US just go, nope, you can't buy here, or you buy here, you pay an additional 3% tax.
Yeah, like all those people that have their vacation homes in Phoenix, Arizona, I swear to God, throughout my career and working in restaurants, I've had at least a dozen to 2 dozen people tell me, oh yeah, we're going to Arizona, or oh, we just got back from Arizona.
And I was just telling you about my neighbor as well, right?
Yes.
So if US does this to us, I can imagine a bunch of Canadians going to be like, hey, I thought you guys are all about free trade, capitalism, and all that stuff. Like, how can you, blah, 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 you guys shouldn't be doing stuff like this.
Well, naturally that, and people just look for ways to complain, so.
Hey, complaining is fun. Maybe that's why, right? Yeah. That's just what I would say is, if US does pass something like this, I'm pretty sure all the Canadians would be shocked, right? Now, whether or not you're going to be pissed about it, that's a different conversation, but you would be shocked. Now, imagine Americans looking at Canada going, what the heck is going on? I thought we're friends.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what? Now I can't even buy if I want to anymore.
I feel like maybe if they made an amendment where, hey, only North Americans can buy, it would be a little bit of a different story. Like, I really don't see there being a lot of US ownership in like entry-level products. Like, have you?
No. And I think we talked about this as well. The banning of foreign ownership, I think one of the biggest people that impacted negatively is our people to the south.
Yes.
I have clients, you have clients, just be like, hey, I'm ready now. Like, I'm ready to buy in Canada. I don't mind paying the 20% foreign buyer tax, whatever. It's fine, right? But I just need to be able to buy because, like, I myself or someone eventually needs to be in Canada for work, for leisure, for retirement. Who cares? But they need to have that option.
Yeah, I was literally talking to this guy for 2 weeks. He was very interested in buying this place in North Van, and I'm like, oh, I noticed you're a US citizen. Are you aware of our foreign ban right now? And then he just disappeared off the face of the earth right after that.
Probably think you're fucking full of it too.
Well, no, I literally linked him the articles, and then he he definitely read my email because the red receipts were on.
Good.
Anyways,
let's
move on to our next article.
Yeah.
Investor-occupants make up 10% of BC home owners. BC shares for investor-occupant is at 9.6% in 2020, which is much higher than other provinces. Now that figure is actually 12.5% in Vancouver and 12.2% in Victoria.
Yeah.
The study also concludes that established immigrants, which is defined as landed before 2010, makes up for the highest share of investors.
Makes sense. I'll explain why.
And also residents age 55 plus also have higher proportions. Thoughts?
Well, let's start off with the 2010. I'll just start off with that. You remember, I think it's the 2 episodes ago, we were talking about how there's this super confidence about Vancouver real estate market, and I was telling me how the younger people might not have that sentiment and how the older people don't have that sentiment.
Yes, they think it's going to go up to infinity and beyond.
That's right.
Because they've got to see what the trend has been like for the last 25, 30 years.
Exactly, and I feel like this basically just summarizes that. Because you got to understand, people who did it in 2010, first of all, that's when we had the first major upspike, right? Well, before, so actually the first major upspike that I remember was like 2006, 2007. So these people, what they have done, if the people that bought before 2010, is that they have that gain, they sold it, diversified their property, gain and diversify again, and gain and diversify again, and they just kept that ball rolling. Now, I'm pretty sure at a certain point, they would have been like, ooh, $500,000 for a one bedroom in downtown Vancouver? I don't think that can go up that much higher anymore.
Yep.
But then they start seeing all their friends are still doing it, and it kept going higher and higher.
Yep.
And that's that foolish, blind faith that I was talking about. It's because your past has taught you that there is no upper limit to this, that you're just gonna keep doing it. And plus, you were lucky enough to be in the game when that whole up spike happened, so you have the ability to diversify.
Well, you and I both know that past performance doesn't always indicate future performance.
But that's not how people's brain would do. I mean,
No.
when Dogecoin was going like crazy, people were like buying that, right?
Yep.
Or what was that when COVID was happening? AMC or GameStop?
GameStop.
Like,
What happened to that? What happened to all you GameStop people out there? Please
That's why
drop it in the comments. What's your portfolio worth?
That's what I'm saying. It's like, people have short-term memories. It's like the last 3 weeks will overtake the last 30 years. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. And on top of that, I guess just what I wrote here as well is that older immigrants, like, people that's way older, like in the 80s and 90s, they still remember kind of how real estate was relatively stable for like 10, 15 years, right? So they have their thoughts about, ooh, mate, do I really want to do this, right? But obviously a lot of them who did play the game, they obviously, made so much money, right? The younger generations, well, I don't even need to start with that. I feel like the younger generations, they can't even get into this game.
Exactly, right? Which is why we're a lot more skeptical.
Exactly, and we haven't, and the younger generations they always have this doubt, like, could this go any higher? I can't afford this already. How could this go potentially even higher?
Yes, and we even have it here. The newer immigrants are no longer that wealthy anymore, or they're just shocked by how much a one-bedroom condo costs.
Yeah.
Let alone thinking about buying a second one.
Exactly.
You literally have immigrants going back to their home countries because they think that coming to Canada means having a better life. However, in reality, they are working entry-level jobs where in the past they might be doctors, lawyers, nurses, what have you, and they can barely afford to live. So is Vancouver truly that desirable for that group of people? Maybe not.
Maybe not, right? So yeah, that's what I would say. I mean,
the Victoria statistic was like a little bit of a surprise for me, to be perfectly honest, but after the last couple of weeks, like I did meet a lot of people who were moving from Victoria to Vancouver, to Richmond. There were like a couple buyers for that Richmond place.
Yeah, I mean, Victoria's at $1,000 a square foot is also very puzzling to me too as well. But
you got to be close to the Queen.
But all jokes aside, I do think Victoria at the 12.2% is probably like catering to like university students. Because
the high tea at the Empress Hotel is just that good.
Is it really?
Yes.
I mean, maybe I should really try it.
I've never had it. I'm just talking on my ass on this one.
On to the next one. All right. This actually links back to some of the previous articles that we have talked about. CMHC reports annual pace of housing starts up 22% in April. This is also powered by an increase of starts of multi-units urban homes, so like, Vancouver, Toronto, and stuff like that. The annual pace for Vancouver is actually up 36%. Toronto is actually up 54%.
Sheesh.
Great news. I mean, even you're like, whoo, I'm happy to hear that so many projects are getting started because we have our reservations about what's going to happen the year after that. This will definitely help with some of the inventory problems that we're currently dealing with. But when I say currently dealing with, it's not like they're going to give us a solution now. They're going to give us a solution about 5 years later when the demand and the bubble is even bigger, right? However, I just want people to note that the 36% increase in housing starts basically really just means that we're now back to pre-COVID construction levels.
Which is still not enough.
It's not enough. I don't want people to hear this, 36%. They're actually doing their stuff. No. Another way of putting this article, we have basically resumed our pre-COVID construction starts.
Awesome, so we're only 3 years behind.
And also 3 years behind. And dealing with a completely changed environment altogether, right? Hopefully, we're able to continue to see this momentum. But for the previous articles that we already said, with the increase of interest rate, what I just said, hopefully we'll be able to continue to increase some of the momentum. I don't think that momentum is going to last too much longer unless the price just continue to shoot up in a vertical scale like that, where all the developers know that there's money to be made. And of course, with the elevated interest rate where we are today, I'm not as confident that that's going to happen.
No, not in the near future.
Not
in the near future, we're talking about 3 to 5 years.
And not with the cost of pre-sale prices nowadays. Like, what is a 1-bedroom in downtown? Like $1 million?
About that.
Yeah.
I think they're selling $1,800 a square foot.
Yeah. So if you want
Let's call it $1,800 a square foot. You're making 550 square foot for a 1-bedroom. You're basically at $1 million or just under.
Okay.
Not even counting your GST. So GST will definitely bring you over $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So in order for people to have confidence, that means that they're confident 5 years later they can sell this for at least $1.2 million for a 1-bedroom. I don't know how people have that kind of confidence. People do have the confidence between 400 to 600,000 because it's still affordable, but 900 to $1 million, $1.2 million, that's a different.
I think all we need to do is just say, for everyone who's listening to this, keep an eye on those Vancouver's Awesome, Urban YVR, all those pages. As soon as they post anything real estate related, look at the comments and you'll see what the public's opinion is about these prices.
Yep. Second thing, though, I wanted to take this moment to talk about is by reading through today's articles, don't you have a feeling that even the media is a little confused on what's going on with the real estate
Don't even
market?
talk about the media, okay? Nobody has any idea what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, like I'm just like running through these old articles and I'm just like, okay, one article talks about this, another article will literally contradict that other article, and then there's another article that contradicts that second article that's more leaning towards the first article. I just thought that is super funny, that it just seems like nobody, the medias, the realtors, the different companies, like nobody really has a clue of what exactly is going to happen next.
Because there's just too many moving parts, and at any given moment, there could be one piece of news that changes the perspective of the entire industry.
And I guess another way of saying it is we are still in this black swan event that it's not predicted and nobody knows how to act. I'm talking about COVID-19, of course, right? We are I think we're not on the health side of COVID-19 anymore, but we're definitely still feeling the tail end of it, of the economic impact that COVID-19 has caused.
And we'll continue to feel it. Not just in real estate, we're even talking, all the crazy news that's been coming up every single week. It sounds like someone's doing something drastic, either in the States or even locally.
Yeah, no, and I just think that this uncertainty has caused media, general medias like these ones, big companies like CTVs or Vancouver is Awesome, to really have contradicting thoughts all over the place.
Yeah. And what does this mean for people who are in terms of real estate? I think we say this many times before. What we suggest that you do is, first of all, have a very honest conversation about yourself, evaluate your finances, where you are in your life, where you think it's going to go in the next 3 to 5 years, have a backup plan, then start talking to a real estate professional on how they can get you to achieve those goals together.
Nope, that's pretty much it. Now, before we wrap the podcast, Jeff, before you do your outro, any other articles that might have popped into your mind that you want to freestyle on a little bit that we can talk to our listener about?
I would say that there is one that we kind of talked about just off screen about the new building material that people are experiencing. This is something that really, really interests me because, there's a statistic out in North America, our carbon footprint is made up of 50% of buildings. Whereas globally, buildings only account for about 39% of carbon emissions.
Okay.
Actually, all of planes, transportation, cars, all that combined together is only about 30-something%. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to explore how we can minimize our carbon footprint in terms of buildings. And this particular podcast talked about a new building material, which is made up of more, I could say, biological material.
Yep.
They call it the fifth. So, the 4 typical building construction materials is either steel, concrete, masonry, or wood. And although wood is a renewable resources, we always talk about, okay, they're cutting down forests way faster than they are replanting them. Yep. So this is one thing that really, really interests me. I want to know what your thoughts on it. Have you seen any buildings that are already like that?
I think there is definitely a push for that. I mean, a couple of projects was at Timber House by Aragon. They're using these new materials. It's all about passive housing and stuff like that, reducing your footprint. Don't even get me started with Curve, that massive project in downtown Vancouver.
Yeah, 60 stories. So what's
yeah, and seal tight, like super passive housing style and all that stuff. I personally feel like we are just in the beginning trend of this. I don't think it's gonna be for people to really talk about in Vancouver because it doesn't immediately impact them right off the get-go.
From the consumer or from the developer side?
Well, I mean,
meaning it's not like it's cheaper to do it. You know, you were telling me it's actually more expensive to be going down that route. So from a development perspective, like why would they want to do that?
Exactly.
Unless there was a demand. And from a consumer, would you care?
So the only I was thinking about this as well. Like in Vancouver, we're lucky to be in Vancouver because Vancouver we have very normal temperatures and our weather doesn't go to the extremes.
Yeah.
I can imagine other cities in Canada where the weather is a lot more extreme to really pick up on these kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think they already have Montreal, Toronto, don't even get me with it. I think Norway, Sweden, they're super into passive housings and stuff like that. I think in Vancouver, just because our weather is so temperament and our weather is just so good, like, is you have a little bit of enough of everything, it's not going to be like immediate, like, oh my God, I'm losing heat in my house. I gotta do passive housing. I don't feel is that. However, there's one thing that I could say in today's Vancouver that would actually make me consider passive housing is all this forest fire thing that's happening during the summertime.
Yes.
I personally have allergies, and when I have those forest fire smogs coming in, like, my breathing does get impacted. And that's the only time that I can think about, like, darn, I wish I'm in the passive housing.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I don't have any other reason to be in passive housing. So I feel like in Vancouver, long story short, is we need a lot more reason for passive housing for it to make sense for the developers to start, okay, let's pump more of these out. The extra cost is definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. Would it be 5 years? Would it be 10 years? I don't know. It really depends on how quickly this whole city deteriorates.
Yeah. That's completely fair. And I mean, maybe I'm just being a bit more of an ideologist when I read news like this. I really think about, okay, what kind of legacy are we leaving behind for future generations? But that's just the one piece of news that kind of I came across that I wanted to bring up.
No, I like it. I like it. We should do this more often, just catching each other by surprise about what they think. And unfortunately, I respect what you just said about, thinking about the future, future generations of what we're leaving behind. But unfortunately, most people are not like that. We're selfish.
No, yeah. I think humans as a species, time and time again, we've literally looked at, the instant gratification.
Yeah.
What's going to get me that right now?
I mean, that's why we created this. Instant gratification, baby.
Yep.
Also ADHD.
Yeah, put the phone down, spend more time in nature. That's the last thing I have to say to everybody. And I think we can probably wrap up this episode.
Because we're way off track.
Way off track. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's podcast of our news roundup.
Yep.
If there was anything that we missed, please feel free to share in your comment section.
Yeah.
By now, you should know that my name is Jeff.
My name is Joe.
We're the Mike for Vancouver Real Estate. We'd love to hear from you. And next week, we will have a different topic.
Yeah, definitely. And we look forward to seeing you there. Bye, guys.
See ya.